And now, welcome to our monthly mental panel on switching careers presented by Women Who Code, a digital and the Dallas Fort Worth network. Let me introduce our host and panel moderator, Stacy.
Hey y'all, I am so excited tonight. I know I say that every time. Maybe that's the moniker of this event. But tonight we're here to discuss switching careers. And we have an amazing set of panelists that I want to take the opportunity to introduce you to right now. So, starting from the top with no particular order, Dominique Belcher. Dominique Belcher is a principal software engineer at Elastic, living and working in Philadelphia with her husband Ryan and son Jose. She decided to switch careers when she couldn't connect her degree to her dream job. Leveraging the local tech community, she learned JavaScript, began volunteering at Girl Develop It, attended a coding boot camp, and landed her first job at a software firm. Over her career, she's used her experience as a self-taught developer to tutor fellow career changers, and 7 years later, started a second full-time career as a mom. Next is Carissa Jones. Carissa has plenty of experience navigating career shifts from aviation to business and entrepreneurship, then higher education administration, then web development and solution engineering, and then back to education. Currently, she is the director of curriculum for New Camp, a low-cost coding bootcamp company that seeks to make high-tech career change as accessible as possible. She is also a college professor in the computer science department at Brigham Young University in Hawaii. Carissa is a native Hawaiian and lives in her ancestral home on the island of Oahu, where she loves to spend time at the beach. She and her husband raised 4 kids and have since added a daughter-in-law and a granddog to the family. Pleasure, Carissa. And finally, Stephanie. Stephanie Brubaker is a product experience designer for Fanatics Workbook Shared Services with a background of 9 years as a 3D product designer for both fine and fashion jewelry brands. She decided to embark on the quest to explore the UX landscape, not only because it aligned with her strengths and fascination with problem solving, functional design, and human psychology, but also because she wanted to learn formal techniques that would help her advocate for an enhanced working strategy and better connect with our customers in a digital heavy era. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And Stephanie, just to give a little extra props, she is coming into this kind of helping out with an extra kind of changeover. You may have noticed one of our panelists had was not able to attend tonight, and just wanted to give an extra special shout out to Stephanie here just for coming in and helping us out tonight. As well as our amazing other panelists. Come on. And I'll be also honest, like our panelists are definitely eating some humble pie on some of these self-descriptors and are far more accomplished than they are kind of letting on. But I think you'll find that as part of our discussion here tonight. So thank you all.
Thanks, Stacy.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Same.
So, first question, and it's kind of always the easy pop-off one, right? Can you tell us a bit about yourself and where you are currently in your current career?
I could go first. I mean, so, you heard a little bit about me already. Yeah, I'm living and working in Philadelphia, with my husband and my new baby. I'm really excited in my current career. I'm currently working as a principal software engineer at Elastic. At Elastic, we are a search software company. So we help our customers deliver search experiences. Our customers like Wikipedia or Yelp be able to offer search for their users when they're trying to find a needle in a haystack. But we also help our customers search through their own terabytes of data to derive insights from their logs and all sorts of other metrics that we can collect on their systems. I think one of the things that, just I want to just touch on is that I'm actually just pretty excited to be working as a principal software engineer right now. I think when I started my career, I wasn't sure, where I would end up. There's often a lot of challenges for women in tech, and it can be tough to continue navigating growing as an individual contributor in the tech space. And so just being able to continue working at this level as a software engineer feels like a huge accomplishment. And I'm just, yeah, here to encourage and push anyone who wants to continue working in tech. If you're interested in continue pursuing, an individual contributor role. I think a lot of times women are sometimes pushed into management or other type or like other types of roles like that. So it's really exciting just to have met this milestone. So I guess that's a little bit about me and where I'm in my career right now.
I can go next. So, as you already heard, I've made a lot of pivots over my long career, and I worked in higher education for a long time, and then decided to switch. And I went to a boot camp and learned to code and became a software engineer. But I was still working in the education industry, so I was doing different things now, but I stayed in the same industry, and hopefully we can talk about that a little bit later on. But while I was working as a web developer, I was recruited back into administration to build out curriculum to teach people how to code. So I guess where I'm at is it's kind of a merge thing of lots of my past experiences kind of coming together, which is really a great place to settle, I think. We all bring so many different skills to the table, and when you change careers, you kind of have to bring all of that along with you and figure out how to put it together into whatever your new thing is. So that's what I'm exploring right now.
And then I guess I'll wrap it up. So I'm basically a UX designer instead of an engineer. I work with a lot of wonderful engineers at Fanatics Sportsbook. So we are basically building a now launched new sports betting app. And I work specifically on what is called shared services. So it's everything other than the betting part. It's the responsible gaming part. It's the account stuff. It's the login, like everything else basically. And I've been there for maybe a year and a half now. And this job was the first job in the UX space from my previous cat. Like I was a jewelry designer slash like 3D modeler. So I enjoy that I get to both be in a technology space because I really enjoy that space and learning a whole bunch of new programs all the time, both in 2D and 3D. But I am such a creative at heart too. So I get to kind of have both in this career. So I'm really exploring how I can take my background and kind of apply it to the UX space.
It's so interesting. I think all of you have kind of pointed out that really you don't switch careers as much as you switch skill sets and the name that they gave them. But it's all kind of an augmentation. So like what does it look like in your kind of typical work week? What are like even some things kind of citing that have held through both careers or multiple careers? Is it 60% new, 50% new, 10% new, or what what parts are different? What are the things that you didn't necessarily expect too?
My new job was really different. I'm just going to jump right in. I thought it was going to be similar because I've worked in education and I've been a teacher forever. But I haven't been on the curriculum side. You know, I've always used uh, other curriculum for things and whatever. So I thought it would be easy. It turned out to be really hard. And imposter syndrome is real no matter what field you're in, honestly. And you know, so I jumped into this whole career development thing and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about career development. This is, you know, or curriculum development or lesson planning. And then I had to produce videos and I had to learn a whole bunch of stuff that I thought that I wasn't even going to need when I signed up for that. So I was like, wow, this is ended up being a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. But a year later and I'm cruising through it and I'm like, okay, now this is pretty easy. It's time to look for a new challenge.
Yeah, I kind of had a bridge into my new career. So taking a step back, I kind of switched careers pretty early in like out of college, only about a year or so, but through college and that year after it, I had already started kind of a career in nonprofits and in particular like in community development nonprofits and urban planning nonprofits. And I was doing a lot of like communications work, things like that, you know, blogging, things like that, event planning, and doing a lot of like work on, you know, the digital presence of those nonprofits. So I was kind of just tinkering around on their content management systems on WordPress, trying to get my day-to-day job done and feeling incredibly frustrated when whatever technical platform I was working on wouldn't do the thing I wanted it to do. And that's kind of where that like just level of frustration just took a leap into let me try to learn a little bit more about this so I can do, you know, better at this current job that I was in. And that's just kind of where I realized that I really had a love for like the digital space and being able to kind of bring like for example, a user experience designer's like vision to life. I really just wanted to kind of deliver delightful experiences online, and that's where I kind of started, you know, kind of connecting the dots and learning CSS and learning JavaScript and just started falling in love with it deeply. And so I took, you know, some of those skills that I had just tinkering, really a lot of tinkering into into my current career where a lot of it is to day to day is continuing to tinker, continuing to kind of not be entirely sure what you're doing and having to, you know, kind of learn a new thing. So yeah, it's crossed over pretty well.
I love that, Dominique, the beauty of not being sure. But actually, I oh my gosh, I'm like totally blanking right now. Say that again.
So, you know, what skills or what things kind of transferred from one to the, like, how new was new?
Okay, yeah, I was trying to correlate with something Dominique said, which I thought was interesting, and I totally blanked on it. But basically, I started learning all about UX to make my other, like, to be better at my other job too. So, so I'm like, yeah, we all had that like shared experience there. So in the jewelry industry, again, it's more heavily designed rather than tech, but it's still it's not quite engineering, but the 3D modeling is like a kind of product engineering. It's a type. So that is one thing that is certainly different now. Like now I have to communicate with engineers to actually build the product. But as far as the day-to-day, like I kind of follow the design process. So that design process is almost universal. It starts from, you know, research, ideation, and then it goes through this whole process of like, you know, discovery, making it real, testing it, going back, questioning yourself the whole time, not being sure. And then, you know, just kind of going for it once you have a whole team of people sign off on it. So as far as that process is very, very similar, but totally the main difference is the software I'm using and the fact that I'm not actually building it, which sometimes I do miss, but most of all, it just gives me like a whole new respect for those who are.
Oh man. Stephanie, we should have connected at some other point about like gemstones and 3D modeling and all that kind of stuff.
We still can do it.
We can do this. Just for the crowd, I was obsessed with becoming a gemologist in middle school and like early high school. So I know a lot about rocks. There's some on my desk randomly, right? Calcite crystals, quartz, amethyst, some desert rose. I don't know. I just think they're cool. Super cool. All right. Now that we've talked a little bit about rocks, why don't we talk about kicking rocks with whether or not this, like you've touched on it a little bit individually, but and I'm kind of interested in, especially like Carissa, like, did any of this feel logical? I mean, like you talked about how you moved into it, like, and does it feel like a whole new domain? Did it feel comfortable? How uncomfortable was it? Do you still feel uncomfortable in it? I'm getting the most interesting facial expressions. Somebody chime in. Somebody go.
So for me, because I've made a lot of changes, a lot of career changes, most of them weren't logical at all. It was driven by need. I went to school to be a pilot. I have a commercial pilot's license. I graduated with my degree right after Desert Storm ended, and all of these pilots were getting out of the military, and I could not get a job without experience as a pilot. I couldn't go into the military to get the experience because at the time the military wasn't hiring women to be a pilot. So I just spent all of this money becoming a pilot, and I couldn't get a job as a pilot because of the issues at the time. So I had to find something else. I pivoted. I went back to school in business because you can always get a job with a business degree, and I did that, and I started working in business, and I took time up to be a mom. And then when I went back to work, I jumped into education because I knew somebody who knew someone who had a job, and it was in education. And I jumped in there and was like, yeah, I have no idea what this is, but I'll learn on the job. Why not? I need a job. And that's how I got into education. When I switched to become a developer, that was the first time it was an intentional shift. I had been working in education for 12 years, 13 years, and I decided that even though I was really good at my job and I really enjoyed my job, it was not a career path that I chose for myself. It was one I ended up in. And, and I had to think about whether I was going to keep doing this for the next 10, 15, 20 years until I retire, or am I going to try something else that I really want to do with my life? And honestly, I wanted to be an astronaut, but that spaceship left without me. So, I have to find something else. So I was like, okay, well, I'm good at computers. Let me try programming. Let me just pick something for myself. And it is 100% scary to shift from something to something that's totally unknown. Because, what if it didn't work? I'm supporting a family. I have a full-time job. If I leave this to do something different, what if I fail? What if I can't code? I'm too old, whatever. All of those things go through your head. So yeah, it's hard to make a change. That's probably the hardest thing ever, is to do something that you really want to do, even though it's risky and scary and might not work.
That is very inspiring to hear. You really are the pivot queen, because I feel like my pivot, it certainly was, but I thought it was still kind of in the same area. You really reinvented 800 times, it seems like, which is so impressive. But But I do agree that just starting something new, so scary. Like I kind of tried to make that change for years, mostly because I was just like holding on to fear, frankly. You know, what if I fail? What if, you know, the only thing I'm good at is designing jewelry? And what if, you know, it just doesn't work out? And then when I got over here for the first, you know, good bit, and I still feel it too, it's almost like, do they know I'm here? Did they figure it out yet that I'm not one of them? Or, you know, it's like it's like a little scary. It was, you
You
know,
are cracking me up, Stephanie. You're like, what if I'm only good at designing jewelry? I'm like, that is a very, very specific thing to only be good at.
I know what if I have one skill?
That's your one skill. But it is, it's the illogical fear, right?
Yeah.
Right? It like gets you. You're like, but this is what I know, right? So
You
go
do
for
for
it.
so
Keep
long.
talking.
No, you're totally hitting it. I'm like, looking back, I'm like, of course you can learn more and you can do other things. But you know, it's just, yeah, illogical. It's just fear. And, you know, I wish I had some of that Krista energy just going in. But eventually we got here.
I think Carissa is probably going to be a little bit like, it wasn't Carissa energy. It was like Carissa need to take care of people motivation. At least the
Got
first
bills to
time.
pay.
I love that. I love that. Respect all on it. You are never too good to pay some bills. Come on now.
Yeah, the imposter syndrome can be really strong for a career changer, I think. So I definitely have experienced that as well, Stephanie. I think especially coming from just like an untraditional career path, especially as a software engineer, not having that computer science degree can often be a source of anxiety for me for sure. I feel like it's definitely something to work out for me, like, you know, in counseling, really. Like I need to talk to people about it all the time, in order to do my job well. Um, I need to like remind myself, you know, frequently of the value that I'm bringing to the team. Yeah, my unique skill set, my unique strengths, my wins in order to continue moving forward. Because I'm often, you know, communicating and, you know, collaborating with people who do have computer science degrees. And I'm often right now, especially in the domain that I work in, a computer science degree honestly would have been incredibly helpful in a lot of ways. There's a lot of things about even just the products that I work on that I still don't quite understand. But I don't know, but you don't always need to understand everything. No one's going to be touching the entire code base, right? No one's going to be responsible for the entire product. So, what's been helpful for me is to remind myself of my unique strength and what I bring to the team, um, for combating imposter syndrome, and like counseling if you have access to it is helpful too.
So I think we touched a little bit about like kind of what motivated you to the change and how'd you find it's like what got you to stick with the change? Like you know, you kind of pick a path. It's you I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And then Stephanie said like it took a little minute, but like what what made it stick? What made it actually happen?
I'll be honest with you, Stacy. I do not know some days. I honestly sometimes look back at that time in my life and I feel like I was like pulled by a string towards this goal. And I don't know where I found internally this like just determination. But I knew at that time that I was going to make this change. Somewhere in my mind, I had made a decision that was very concrete. It wasn't like I'm going to try to become a developer. I kind of knew that I was going to figure out how to get from point A to point B. And I just had this strong sense of confidence in myself. I don't necessarily know where it came from or how to get it, and I'm sorry that I can't like, give you some insight on that. But I think a lot of it, can come from this innate, like even just Carissa, like that willpower to just, you know, make all of these diverse changes. Like sometimes you don't know where it comes from. It just like you wake up one day and you realize I need to make this change and I'm just going to do it and I'm going to make it happen. I wish I had some better advice, but I don't know. Sometimes I wish I could actually get some of that motivation back from that time. Sometimes I have to go back to that time and I'm like, that woman that I was then when I made this big shift, I want more of her. So yeah, I don't even know what it was some days.
Let me throw a small example, and I apologize for where it comes from. But there is this thing in various recovery circles, recovery kind of things, and people who are getting through tough times. But specifically, I guess the recovery example would probably work for most people to understand it. But you don't say, I'm trying not to drink or I'm trying not to X or whatever. You just say, I don't drink. I don't X. I don't this or I do this. There is no try. There's just this kind of fake it till you make it for yourself kind of aspect to it that I found really beautiful as talking to a friend recently. So that's amazing. But Dominique, you are that person. You are that person. Come on. Carissa, Stephanie, please.
I think it really comes down to what your why is. Why are you doing this? Why are you going out of your comfort zone to make yourself uncomfortable and learn something new? A lot of people change careers because they have to, or because they hate their old job and they're hoping that their next job is going to be better. But when the path to get to the next job gets uncomfortable, you start looking back at the old one and go, that wasn't that bad. I'll stick that one out a little bit longer, because you're driven by the why of not being uncomfortable, right? You have to shift that focus. You have to find the why that's motivating you to do the hard things. For me, it was, what do I want to spend the rest of my life doing? Do I want to keep doing this where I'm comfortable, or do I want to learn something new and do something of my own before it's too late and I die? It's so that why motivated me to try something new, even though it was hard. It was calculated risks, but I already knew I could do hard things. I just know I just needed the right motivation to make that step and to do the next hard thing.
I would say for me, it was a little bit of all that. Honestly, I really enjoyed what I did. I loved the technical aspect of it, the creative aspect of it. I love the people I work with, but it's a little different for me because it was so niche. It's a very, very small world that is jewelry design. And that is something that I looked 10 years into my future, 5 years into my future, and I said, like, do I want to be at this company, probably one step up? Like, am I kind of stuck here, not being able to move where I live, not being able to have any kind of like bargaining chip as far as advancement too, because they know this is kind of a niche little situation here, but I just kind of felt stuck in the industry. I worked for a company that was predominantly female, which was a really, really wonderful thing to see all these magnificent women in power and, in leadership. But however, the jewelry industry in general is incredibly male dominated too. Not saying, there's anything wrong with whoever's leading, but I really liked seeing women kind of thrive. So again, I'm like, okay, I'm stuck here. And secondary to that, I wasn't using the skill set that I was really passionate about, which is kind of connecting with people, with psychology, while maintaining the technology and creativity. You know, I really like bringing in, you know, people into the mix, and it just wasn't happening for me there. So it took me a long time, again, because I was comfortable. I thought I was making okay money, like it was secure, but it just came down to like, where is my future going? And I needed to push through that. And so moving into this other career kind of opens this net up very widely in comparison. And that is something that I feel very excited about, that I almost feel like I can spread my wings a little bit more.
And I guess I can throw in like kind of a different version of what switching careers can look like. Switching careers can also look like switching specializations. Um, you know, you can there's a lot of career sets where people don't necessarily realize that they are different, even though there is crossover. And so anybody who's been a back-end engineer and a front-end engineer can tell you they are two vastly different skill sets, and, you know, can have elements of crossover, but they can be inherently different. I started out my career in security and embedded development. So embedded development as in like embedded Linux operating systems, a lot of kind of product design based things as well, lots of inventive thing, but um then I kind of was looking at where that future was gonna put me in, and it was a very dark room with no windows, and it was very cold. It was very sad. And so I made a conscious switch over to apps for a lot of the same reasons that Stephanie did, where it's connecting people and product and all of those things. So um, you know, it doesn't have to necessarily be entirely new domain shifts. You can often find that there's a way for you to like make that migration. And the first job I got, even doing like security and embedded and stuff like that, was because I made an app version of my resume and sent that to places, and then they were like, but you know, operating systems, and that ended up being the first Android gig. So yeah, it reminds me of the box from Silicon Valley. Wait, you have to remind me of what that is. It's been a while since I watched it. Oh, I don't, you're
Oh,
on mute.
sorry. Yeah. I don't even remember the guy's name when the main character, like, you know, when they wanted to take his like algorithm and use it for just like a like storage box like somewhere in a data center and they wanted just to put him in the data center just in like a dark room essentially, yeah, with no windows. They just wanted to use his, you know, special technology for that purpose. So yeah. No, it's just
It was
great show. Silicon Valley is excellent show.
yeah, for sure. So I mean, there I love all the differences that we have here. It's so cool. But like what did it cost you? Like, um, we've heard a couple boot camps. We've heard a total different product specialization. Like, did it cost you money? Did it cost you time? Did it cost you everything? You know, did you lose like your firstborn child to a cliff? What happened here? No, so that's a Marvel joke. It's Stephanie. It's okay. Okay. It is nighttime.
I well, so I spent 2 years of my time um working on this, first of all. And so I kind of started teaching myself, and I was attending a lot of girl development classes and things like that. Spent, a few dollars here and there on that. I think I spent like maybe like $2,000 on another like kind of digital online course. I think maybe. No, that sounds like a lot. Maybe 200. I don't think I actually spent $2,000. And then once I decided I really wanted to go to this boot camp, I knew that I needed to have enough money saved to support myself because it was a risk. Like I knew I was taking a large risk and I needed to have a safety net. So I mean, I saved like, 10, 11, 12 grand to be able to afford to live in case I didn't get a job right away. And to be able to support myself, food and everything, like while I was going to this camp. But fortunately, the camp I went to provided housing, so that was nice. I got housing baked into my tuition. And then my tuition, I guess, was about 10, 11, 12 grand. Can't quite remember. I will say that the first year that I did this, I doubled my salary. It paid for itself in its first year. So, huge, incredible return of investment, and it's paid for itself multiple times over the course of 4, 5, 6 years. So it's been a really good investment in time and money.
Yeah, it's definitely a good investment because I also put some money down on it. I mean, I was working full time while basically going. It was a boot camp. It was about a year-long boot camp, and the amount of hours I put into it was a second full-time job. So I was just working constantly, and that cost about 7 grand for the entire tuition. And I also worked one-on-one a few times with a career coach. She helped me kind of gain confidence in the switch and help me with my resume, some case studies, kind of like help position myself in a way that's more marketable in a different industry. So her, luckily it didn't take too long since I hired her, but she was maybe like $250 and like per session. So, but kind of like Dominique said, like it has paid for itself, it almost immediately. Even if it took that long of a time, it was so worth it and financially so worth it too.
I would just to kind of clarify, there's really 3 paths if you want to learn to code specifically, right? You can DIY it yourself and it's cheap. You can learn to code for free. There's plenty of resources out there. It's just going to take time. If you've got time and you don't have a lot of money, do it that way. That is definitely the easiest way to go. No, not the easiest. It's definitely the cheapest way to go. It requires a lot of self-motivation, which is what makes it hard because you have to figure out for yourself what you're going to study, how you're going to study it, what you're going to focus on, and then you have to like keep yourself focused. I know that I'm not the only one guilty of a dozen Udemy classes that I've never even opened. I mean, it's just a thing, right? And then there's the college route. College is way more expensive. It takes at least 4 years. But you've got, so much structure that it keeps you on track. It tells you exactly what you need to do. If you don't have a degree, it's a good way to go because it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for you. For me, I already had a master's degree. I didn't need to go to college. I did not have time to spend figuring it out on my own. I needed to just get in and get out. So I did a boot camp. I couldn't afford to quit my job, so I had to keep working full time, which means that I had to find a part-time boot camp so that I could do both while I was working. I spent 10 grand on that. It was 6 months. I had a job 4 months after I graduated. The new job had more than a $10,000 bump in salary, so it paid for itself after the first year. It's just one of those things where you have to figure out, okay, what's my goals? What's my timeline? How am I going to get there? Let's look at the options. And you just kind of map it out.
Was money a motivator?
Well, yeah, when 10 grand's on the line, you don't want to just drop out, right? You're like, I got to make this work. I have to pay back my mom.
No, I
This
mean,
is like
but
my
like,
inheritance, right?
no, not, well, I mean, once you got money on the line, you got money on the line. I mean, you got to ride that bet, right? But No, but also like was the money something that also made you accountable? Did it uh
Hell yeah.
it made you accountable? Did it for you, Dominique? Did it like hold you to it, keep you on track?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I had to work as hard as I could because, obviously I was running out of money too, because I had committed to quitting my actual job. I wasn't working another full-time job. So I kind of had to had to make it work at that point. Yeah.
But also was the end potential pay difference a motivator? Was it about like, I mean, was it 10% of like why you did it, or was it, oh girl, I needed to make some
I
money?
felt kind of, I think I was kind of illusioned about like what salaries looked like coming out of college. Like when I went to college, I didn't quite understand like, you know, what I could expect to earn based off of like the degree I picked until, I went and found the statistics about like, salary expectations. And when I looked at that document and, saw the, major I was going down, I was about to graduate with, and I saw like, what the salary expectations were, that's when I was like, man, I should maybe think about trying to learn something else. So, yeah, it was definitely a motivator, especially when I started realizing what the actual salary potential was in the current like career that I was on.
Definitely for me too. Although I thought when I decided to do the boot camp, I was like, okay, a year from now, I'm going to be making like $500,000. And that is so not true. So I thought that switching to become a web developer would be like,
Girl, I don't make
this
$500,000.
this
Come on
money
now.
machine that was going to like give me bucket loads of money. And no, that didn't happen. But there is a lot more money to be made in this field than there was in the field that I was in before. It's going to take time like any other career. It's not like instant cash. But I think the ceiling's a little higher. And yeah, that was definitely a motivator for me because I had 4 kids to feed and bills to pay.
Girl, I feel you. I got $3,500 a month in childcare. Come on now.
And I had teenage boys. They were eating me out of house and home. I had
Oh.
to find something quick.
Pray for your old fridge. That's what.
I got a cat. I need to feed. No. No, I mean, I don't know that, like, I definitely transitioned because I wanted to do something that felt more me. But I'm not gonna lie and be like, yeah, I'd spend all this money and time and energy to get let. Like, like I don't know that I could do that. Some people can. I don't know.
I mean, if you are dedicated to a singular thing, one thing I will say, especially as we're kind of circling around things in tech, everybody's working in tech and everybody's working in tech in totally different capacities, correct? Right? Like if you think there is, you like to design, there's a place for you. You like to interact with people. Guess what a UX researcher is, right? There is something for every skill set, technical writers, everything. I mean, it's so stunning to me when people are just like, they think that tech means engineering or that it means coding. And, for a certain group of people, it does. But what makes me good at my job is not because I'm a good coder. What makes me effective at my job is knowing the right problems to solve and how to solve them the most effective way, which is usually people oriented. So, think about that. And no, nerd culture is definitely a thing, but like, it's not exclusionary.
So I have
Um,
a fun fact to share on that
Go
topic,
ahead, go
Stacy.
for it.
And I just came across this last week. I'll have to see if I can find it and share the source with you. But out of all of the jobs in the tech industry, only 40%, I'm sorry, all tech jobs, only 46% are in the tech industry. So that means that more than half of all tech jobs are outside of the tech industry. There are more jobs in education, healthcare, medicine, science, retail, transportation, whatever, than there are actually in the tech industry. And I didn't know that because I was comfortable in education. And I thought that if I was going to make this change, that I was going to have to leave education. And that was hard because I loved being in education. I didn't really want to go work for a tech company, but I thought that's what I would have to do to make that career change. So I was so surprised and happy to discover I can be in tech and in education. I didn't know that. That was like the big learning that I had in my career path, is that the jobs that I want to do exist in all different sectors. So you can bring them together and it's not crazy,
That's such an interesting point, because I really have come to terms with that as well. What I did in my, like, I'm a creative person at heart. But what I did before was considered a creative job, even though it was highly technical, like 3D modeling, 3D, like it was a highly technical job. But one, the pay scale is lower simply because it's a creative job. Now, I think I use the same skill sets and I'm still creative. But again, I'm using this very similar mindset, maybe not skill set, in now what is considered a tech industry. And it's completely different how they're spoken about, and the salary bands. It was like very interesting for me to come to terms with, just because of the industry. You don't have to necessarily change what you do so much, but just the industry is like, it determines a lot, actually. It's really wild.
Good point. Yeah.
Hey, when I worked at Home Depot, I sold hammers on the internet. When I worked for Nike, I sold shoes on the internet. When I worked for Stitch Fix, I sold clothes on the internet. When I worked for Fanatics, I sell sports stuff on the internet. What do you want me to do, man? Like So, just kind of jumping off of that to kind of get into I think a really interesting question that a lot of career switchers have, which is, hey, maybe I have a degree in this and I did something else, and this is coming from our folks who are watching here today, but they did something else for a couple of years. It didn't turn out. And then they joined a company working as a full stack developer, and they really just don't know if they should bring it up what they used to do, not talk about it, put it on a resume, don't put it on a resume. You know, I see Carissa's LinkedIn history. I'm just like going, girl, you proud. Like that is but I think that I don't know. I'm interested to know what your opinions are. Like, do you talk about it? Do you not talk about it? How much do you talk about it? Do you talk about it only when it happened a long time ago? Is it like that one person you dated kind of scenario? It's like, oh, we dated, but it was only for 2 weeks, or
Every job has a transferable skill to bring to the next job. It's your job as a career changer to figure out what those transferable skills are and articulate them in the context of the new job, so that your boss can appreciate you for all of these extra skills that you bring to the table. I mean, it's like they hired X and they got XYZ. So it's this value add that you bring, but it's up to you to figure out how to put all those skills into the context that is relevant for your new workplace.
I just say perfectly said. I don't know.
Yeah, I think like storytelling is huge. Like immediately upon hearing your story, my interest is already piqued. Like I want to hear about it. Yeah, I want to hear about all that you've kind of gone through and the lessons that you learned. I know at my job in particular, as an engineer, our organization puts a lot of emphasis on trial and error. Yeah, like in um trying something, and it's okay if it doesn't work out. It's okay if you take some time to look into going down one route for a project. It's okay if it doesn't work out, if you're able to, articulate your learnings, your findings, yeah, kind of describe what you've learned through this. I've already am just quite interested in your story. I think just hearing about it, and I would be incredibly interested, I think, as an interviewer to hear about that background. I think that I find anyone who is willing to take a risk of being an entrepreneur uh, quite impressive. So I know that I personally would love to hear more about that.
I had a actually one of the hurdles that I had to come over in order to switch careers was that thinking for myself of what is relevant, what is, what did I learn, and kind of phrase it to myself and then kind of position myself in interviews as like, this is my background, but be proud of it and not try and be like, oh, well, I did this, but it's like this. I had to be like, this is my background. This is what I've learned from it.
Yeah.
This is why I'm different and special and can do the job here, but I also have like, kind of like you were saying, like XYZ along with it. And that's a good thing rather than a hindrance. And I had to learn to talk to myself that way too, rather than it being like, oh, I'm behind. It's no, this is a great thing. And once I was able to do that or say that to myself, I could say it to other people too. So I just wanted to throw that in there, that sometimes like the self-talk in how you're going through these interviews or kind of thinking about your journey, you kind of have to believe it yourself a bit too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Little question here. Did you feel like you may have felt like you were quote unquote behind when you started? Maybe, maybe not. Um, did that go away? Do you think that you've caught up and then some? I'm gonna say I think so. But what, and if you did, what when did you have that realization? Or did it click? Or what was some piece that you brought to it?
I'll just continue on. I've actually been thinking about this a lot recently. So I've been in conversations like in my job now. I've only been doing it a year and a half, and some people have been in the same position or in the industry for, a lot longer. However, the conversation I'm having, it feels now quite natural. And I was just talking to a peer and he reminded me, he's like, you've been doing similar things for 10 years now. These, you have all these other skills, and it may not be, again, just your job, but you have all these soft skills that you brought over that, I almost like, I feel like I personally have so much still to learn. I think a lot of, life is a constant learning journey, and I'll never say I'm ahead or, I don't feel behind anymore, but it's kind of like I feel much more comfortable in the space that I'm in now. And that happened a lot more quickly simply because, a lot of what we do is not just black and white. It's a lot more that you're taking from all of the other experiences you've had.
I go back and forth, I think, like when it comes to whether or not I've arrived. We've talked about imposter syndrome once already. And what's been helpful for me, which I think I've already mentioned, has been continuing to remind myself about my successes, about the value that I've brought to my peers, to the company, um, you know, just value that I added to projects, bugs I caught, projects I led, knowing that this product is better because I was on this team, I think has helped me to realize that I have value, and I'm meant to be here. Um, and that yeah, I'm just a value add to the team. But like I said, I go back and forth, and I think it's always challenging. I think if you're a type of person who is interested in continuing to learn and grow and progress your career, who's interested in, you know, maybe jumping a few times throughout their career, or a person who is interested in shifting through different industries or specializations. You can almost, may never fully feel super comfortable. And that can be hard and challenging emotionally. And it's been hard. It's been a little bit challenging for me emotionally. Um, but that's why I kind of have to be able to, what's the right word? Um, self-validate, you know, instead of looking for, you know, external validation for like from like my manager, from my peers, or something like that. I have to kind of be able to go through my past work, see where I come from, how I've grown, what I've done, and be able to validate myself to continue moving forward and feel as though I 100% deserve to be here and I am an incredibly valuable member of the team.
Powerful. My goodness. Can I just I'm gonna air quote that and put it on my little board and have that be a little reminder, like self-validate.
Or just, call your friends and say, am I doing a good job? No. So validation's probably better.
Well, especially when you make a mistake, right? Everybody makes a mistake. Or if you can't figure something out and you think like, and then you look on the internet and nobody else has figured it out either. And you're like, oh, it's okay. Like, it'll be fine. And then you beat yourself up because you're like, no, I'm smarter than this. I can do it. It just keeps, it's like this weird cycle that ends up happening.
One thing that can be interesting for self-validation, if you have a good relationship with your boss, ask them sometime when you have a conversation, why did they hire you over all of the other candidates? What was it about you that made you stand out so that you got the job? Because oftentimes the person who hired you values and see things differently in you than you might even recognize in yourself. So it's like, obviously they liked you because they hired you, right? Don't ask the people who don't like you. But, if they hired you for a reason, find out what that reason is. I was surprised to find out that I shouldn't have been surprised, but I graduated from a boot camp and I thought I was all that. And my boss said, "Yeah, honestly, you're a terrible developer. There are a lot of people that interviewed that were way better developers than you, but you had all this other stuff, all these experiences and skills and talents that were way beyond what we were looking for, and that's why we hired you. We could teach you how to code. We needed someone who had that whole package." And that was interesting for me to say, wow, all of this other stuff is valuable, it is useful, and employers want that. So now that's what I preach when I talk to people about career changing. It's that whole package, all of that experience that you bring with you. That's hard to find. That's what makes you a unicorn. That's, put that out front, be proud of that.
For sure. 100%. And also we've gotten a lot of questions about like, how do you get through interviews and resume and profiles? We actually have previous sessions of the monthly mentor panel series recently, specifically around these topics. So please, 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 if you want to go more in depth on how to create a digital profile, how to actually get through the interview process, what you need to actually do on your resume, how far do you go back, what do you talk about, all of those things, and how do you like kind of craft your persona, please go back and check out some of our previous sessions. But I do think that there's really kind of this extra hard thing that I'm even encountering with people under my wing, so to speak, or folks that I'm trying to help who graduated a boot camp and are having a very hard time getting through the interview process. Even though they might have the right things crafted. And I'll be perfectly honest, I think that the state of tech careers is tech economy is a little different at the moment, but obviously, Stephanie, you did this very recently. And so proof that it's not impossible. How'd you get the interview? How'd you get the job?
That's it's a tough question because I just empathize so much for people going through it. It is not easy. And you have to have no one on the end of the phone line a lot and get comfortable with that, For me, I framed my LinkedIn, actually. I think a lot of jobs come through LinkedIn, and I redid my whole LinkedIn to the job that I wanted without I wasn't lying about my past, but I just framed it to, these are my skill sets that might use words that a recruiter might search for, or, I use the word product design. If you do a boot camp, just tailor that LinkedIn to the things and skills you've acquired from the boot camp. And so I got the interview because they came to me because I did that. I really feel like if you're applying, it's a void. Like, it just feels like a void. And I got some responses back, but it was really few and far between. And I'm not going to lie about that. It took basically creating an identity around the job you wanted. And also, once you then get the interview, like getting to the next step, that's a whole other thing too. It's again, bringing your skill set that pertains to first, bring how it translates first, and being confident in that once you do get the interview. But I will say it is just very tough. I find a lot of it, sometimes I just feel lucky while being prepared, So you have to be prepared for the opportunity.
Mhm.
You have to be patient.
I say there's 5 things that you need to do to get the interview. The first thing is you need to make sure you're looking in the right industry, wherever you have all your experience, because that's the industry experience that you're trying to bring to the table. And then the other 4 things are network, and network, because every job I've had in the last 25 years is because I knew somebody who got me that job, or introduced me, or led me the way, or helped me in through the back door, or whatever. So you need to have a network. You have to talk to people. We're all introverted. Well, except I don't think Stacy's introverted, but most of us are introverted.
Interestingly, I count as an introvert because I do not get energy.
There you are.
I have to spend time alone every day. This is why working from home is great for me. And I get irritated if my husband is in the same room. It's just like, I can't work. It's so weird.
Most programmers are introverts. I think that's why we get drawn to programming. But you have to push yourself out there and talk to people. And I promise you that you get a certain level in your career, you don't have to apply for jobs anymore, because the jobs are going to come knocking on your door. People are going to call you up and say, hey, we want you to come work for us. And that's a great place to be. And it'll happen if you build that network and you build up that experience in your industry.
And one that just came in, how do I network as someone who has no one I know in tech? Oh my goodness. No
Women
one.
who code.
Not a soul here. Not a soul. Not a bunch of names of people who might be in the participant list, or people who are hosting, or people whose LinkedIn's were posted, or
The women in tech community for me when I was shifting careers was one of the best parts of the entire thing. I think actually, I didn't mention this earlier, but that was one of the things that kept me motivated for sure. I really enjoyed meeting all of these women. They were just all so impressive, so friendly. Everyone was so willing to help. I was just drawn to them, and it really made me want to work in tech because I wanted, I wanted to be friends with people. I wanted to work with these people. The tech community that I made, especially in person, going to events like the events that Women Who Code throw, was absolutely game changing for me. Not only did I have a lot of fun at it, I just, you know, it helped boost my social life, and that was awesome. But I did actually find mentors through that. I did find people who were willing to go to bat for me. I did find people who put me on volunteer projects that they were working on. I found people who were, willing to refer me for informational interviews, for real interviews. I found people who were willing to let me volunteer to, be a teaching assistant at, one of their events. Um, it really was one of the best parts of switching careers because it was fun, it was satisfying. I have some nostalgia for it because I don't go to as many in-person tech events now, being as busy as I am, but it is wonderful establishing that community. I mean, yeah, what y'all are doing here at Women Who Code is just so awesome for the global tech community. Like it makes my heart sing, honestly. Yeah.
Absolutely. My first tech event after the boot camp was a Women Who Code hackathon. And it was so validating to me to be there with all these women, because I didn't know, I had just come from a boot camp and I still didn't know if I even fit, right? If I was even going to make this work. And then I get into this room with 150 other amazing women, all different levels of their careers. And I belong there. I was like, this is my people. I belong here. I can do this. And that is an amazing place to be. So yeah, these are tech events. Just sign up for one in your community and go to those events and start meeting people. That's how you network. And you have fun along the way.
And this is already like a great way to network. Like you're already in the right spot. This is a great event to just sit in on, and you have all these names and people, and then even peers like in this chat, they're going through the same thing.
Absolutely.
I've heard a lot of questions referring around mentorship, being worried that they can't find a mentor, or that somebody won't mentor them, or that even if they get a job that they may not meet the qualifications or get the kind of skill ups and things like that. The best thing I can say, and I'm sure that a lot of folks here will probably build on it, but like number one, ask. You're not, if you're in the interview and you go, so what does mentorship look like? How does the team work together? If you're at these events, hey, what do you work in? Oh, wow. You're where I want to be. Can I talk to you sometime? I'm kind of curious. Did you have mentors? Do you still have mentors? How did you get them?
I've had many mentors in my career. And oftentimes there's mentors for different aspects of your career. And just maintaining a professional relationship with somebody that you admire, that's a mentor. You don't have to go up to a person and say, hello, my name is Krista, will you please be my mentor? Because that's super awkward. Just start by having a normal conversation with them and ask if you can follow up with them later and ask if you can ask for their advice. I mean, honestly, a lot of people like to give advice. So, it's let that mentorship relationship develop organically. Don't try to force something weird and awkward because nobody wants to do that.
Yeah, I mean, people do want to genuinely help. And if you're scared that people don't want to genuinely help, then keep in mind too that like psychologically it feels really good to people to be asked for help. Like it gives them a little bit of a boost of confidence themselves. So yeah, you might be doing someone else a favor by asking for their help too. Just giving them a little bump in their day. Yeah. Exactly what Carissa said though, and hit the nail completely on the head. All my mentorship relationships were just kind of organic. Hmm.
Yeah. Mine too. The more I talked about what I was doing, the more people want to help. Like people really do love to help and be like, oh, I know a person, this person, they would love to talk to you. I had a lot of friends just have like a friend of a friend, and they just like love to help. I don't, then that is like some kind of psychology behind it. Like it's exciting. It makes them feel good too. But through my boot camp, I actually worked with a mentor through the boot camp. So that was also really, really nice. But yeah, most of it was just connections and just talking about it too. And, again, I never was like, hey, you're my mentor now. But just say like, oh, I really am inspired by your achievements in career, and I would love to learn from you and have a conversation, take them to coffee, a Zoom meeting, whichever. Oh gosh, you saw the cat. I saw the little.
Yeah, that's just random cat paw across the side.
I didn't even notice. I'm so used to her. She's really demanding.
So now that that cat's out of the bag, kind of the final question of the night. Where can we find you? What do you want to promote? Tell us what you're up to. And any last little one-liner of advice.
I mean, I'll promote our sports book, Fanatics Sportsbook. If you're a sports bettor, we're just launched. Well, we've been launching in a bunch of states. We just launched in Pennsylvania. If you know anybody who likes sports betting, me, I don't know much about sports myself, but I love making the product. Words of advice is like, again, just keep going and keep learning. You can always keep learning, and it's only going to make you better, and it's not wasted.
I'll put in a shameless plug for my employer as well. Check out New Camp. I mean, I did a $10,000 boot camp because there weren't any cheaper options back then. Now we've got much lower cost options. New Camp is affordable. It's flexible. If that was around back when I did the boot camp, I would have loved to have that choice, that opportunity. So if you're not sure what you want to do, if you're kind of on the fence and you're thinking about a boot camp, New Camp is a cheap way to kind of get your feet wet and decide if that's what you want to do before you commit to 6 more months of stress. Try it out first.
Well, yeah. I guess I can plug Elastic too. Yeah, if you're interested in learning more about Elastic, potential positions that we might have open, you can feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. Also, it's really easy to get started with Elasticsearch, our technology, and it's it's actually a pretty, in-demand skill to have too, as well. Very very impressive on a resume as well. So if you're interested in learning Elasticsearch and want to know where to get started on that, you can hit me up as well. Yeah, I think find ways to tell your unique story, as people have already mentioned here. And yeah, that'll take you really far.
Be true to yourself.
Well, thank you so much to all of our panelists tonight and everyone here for joining us. It doesn't happen without the power of y'all. So, wow, I need to make that like its own, the power of y'all. So, thank you again for everyone, especially our panelists, Dominique, Charissa, and Stephanie. Again, doesn't happen without y'all.